being forceful. Good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, February 15th, Maplewood Richmond Heights Board of Education meeting. We are starting at 7 o'clock p.m. Can we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, do we have anybody for public comment?
We do. Loretta Colvin is here.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. We are looking at public comment, section 1.03. I just want to remind everybody, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Please refrain from sharing any personally identifiable information and confidential personnel matters about students or staff. Thank you. Just a reminder, the board does not respond to individual public comments during the meeting, but all speakers will receive a follow-up communication from the board within 72 hours. Please come up to the podium and introduce yourself, Ms. Loretta Colvin.
Hi, I'm Loretta Colvin. Richmond Heights and Maplewood are small towns. That is what sets us apart. We have close connections with others in our community and the school district. And yet we also enjoy the benefits of a large metropolitan area that is culturally and socially diverse. As things go with small towns, word gets around. Last year became apparent we were losing teachers at the close of the school year, and community concerns began to surface. These teachers were not underperformers. Close to a dozen of these individuals were teachers we knew. We were losing professionals I knew and had personally seen the impact they had on my children's education. For me, their departure was a shot across the bow. I worried that the fabric of the district was beginning to fray. I've seen this before in organizations undergoing rapid transformation without effective change management, and I didn't want to see it happen to MRH. Since then, I've been spending time learning more about teachers' concerns and the tools administrators and school board members can mobilize in response. I've heard teachers report low morale, of not feeling heard, and that their needs are not understood. But they are afraid to speak up because MRH is a small district in 2 small towns, and word gets around. I've attended board and district meetings, and I've reviewed board materials. And I want to express my sincere appreciation for all of you for the time you spend managing this information, because it is a lot. What I've concluded is that a more open dialogue is needed about what our district could do for our teachers. Teacher pay is increased, but it remains comparatively low for our region. The budget for the central office has increased to ratios of administrative staff to teachers that are significantly higher than comparative districts. This makes me worried about whether our teachers and building staff have the resources they need to close achievement gaps from the front lines. I'm unsure what steps are underway to improve teacher morale and retention, what key performance indicators are used to measure their effectiveness, and how accountability is structured around these goals. I'm here asking you to chart a path forward that offers teachers and staff the psychological safety they need to share their concerns and ideas for improvement. This is not easy in a small district and sometimes requires outside resources to facilitate this goal. We need a process that shares findings in the most transparent manner possible with administrators, the board, and the community. This information can guide administrators and administrative and budget priorities to help address our teachers' concerns. This may slow down the pace of change, but it is what is needed to be effective. In a post-pandemic world, we need vision and leadership that is mindful of our teachers' needs and empowers them to help our students succeed and help all of our students succeed. I want our district to punch above its weight, and we need support for our teachers to make this happen. Please, help our teachers so they can help MRH move forward.
Thank you. Moving on to section 2.0, consent agenda. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Section 3.0, study items. 3.01, construction change orders by Mr. Holzer. We
Yes.
have
Dr.
Oh,
Dietrich
may I
is...
say, Dr. Dietrich is out sick, and I forgot to say that, if you'll indulge me a second, Dr. Jameson is at a learning experience, the American Association of School Administrators. And so she is out of the building this week, so go for it.
Okay, so construction is continuing. A few highlights that Dr. D sent my way. The high school final phase of the ground floor, that's where the wrestling room, weight room, locker rooms, and a couple of learning spaces are. That punch walk is tomorrow. Crews will start waxing next week. Area C, which is the current student services area on the first floor of the high school, middle school. The demolition in that space is complete. It's to become 3 classrooms. I have not gotten to see what that space looks like unbuilt, but I'll make sure I do that before I leave this evening. And let's see, the Maria J. Langston Administrative Center is well underway. We did make one change to increase the size of the public space there, the boardroom. Before, we were going to be right around 49. With moving a couple walls around, we'll be right around capacity of 70. So that'll greatly increase the size of that space and make it a bit more usable for our purposes. So that's what I have. Do you have any questions?
I do. I always hate to ask this question because I realize it's a moving target. What is the new timeline of construction, if you know?
I don't know specifically. I've stepped away slightly from not nearly as engaged as I was, but I do know that we're looking at this spring. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I know we have a little bit of fatigue.
There is fatigue, but I will say that I can't speak for anybody in the spaces, but the folks that have moved into the new spaces, I believe, are enjoying them, and we've gotten some really good compliments and some happy, smiling faces. I walked through that space this evening before the meeting, and they've definitely moved in. We have college posters on counselors' doors, and Vince's fathead head on one of the sandwich boards as you walk into the space. So it's definitely been MRH'd, and we're happy to see everybody using those spaces as designed.
I want to let the board know that we are looking at later the change orders. It says we're going to do change order 42, 43, and 44. 44 has not been uploaded, and therefore we are not going to vote on that. We're going to wait until you can see all the documents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Study item 3.02, preschool tuition.
Hello.
By Dr. Rashad.
As you can see, I'm not Dr. Leggett. She's actually unable to be with us this evening, so I am going to attempt to present for her this evening. I will attempt to answer questions, but if I don't have the answers, I will, somebody will take some notes for me. Thank you. Okay, so we are looking at making a tuition proposal for this upcoming school year for the preschool tuition program. One of the reasons that we're looking at doing this is aligning with our school board policy of looking at tuition programs, and some reasons for doing that is making sure that we're keeping up with the inflation costs, increases in wages since 2018, which looks to me that's when the last time we raised tuition in this program. We've had some additional supply and activity costs to engage planning and materials needed for programming, and we're also looking at an increase in expenditures because we're looking at an online system that will allow parents to pay online as well as track those payments online and generate some of those tax documents automatically for our staff who are currently doing that, not automatically. So make sure we're looking at those things. This is our tuition information. We do have a variety of options for families as far as tuition. Our recommendation that we look at kind of talks about one particular rate increase, but that would be a rate increase across the board. We just sort of use the ones who kind of have an idea of what that would look like for the 5 full days for families. Our current monthly payment is $754 a month, which comes at a yearly rate of $6,785 a year for families. And then that breaks down into if they choose 3 full days or 3 half days or 2 full days or 2 half days or 5 half days. The tuition is broken down for that as well. There's also options for free reduced status and yearly rate as well. But we've also previously talked about students that are qualified for free reduced and or Head Start also have options for completely free preschool as well. So those are options for families that need assistance from us. In this slide, we have an overview of some tuition around the area. These are all preschools within range of the driving range of us and some options. Please do note that tuition varies across programs, hours varies across programs, and programming varies across programs because there's no real set guidelines, so districts sort of set those for themselves. If you look at the first line, that is us, and where our yearly rate is and what we charge, and we kind of broke that down into the 5-day rate comparison in order to try to compare apples to apples. And if you look overall at what the average is across the board at area programs, we charge $754 a month, and the average across programs is almost $900 a month for families. We do tend, Dr. Leggett looked at the enrollment, and over the past several years, we've seen a huge increase in full day requests from parents. There's been a drop in those partial day and part day requests from parents, and we've just seen a big jump in those full 5 days for families. Our total capacity is at 155, and the total enrollment for this year is at 145. This slide talks about some of the projected revenues that we can look at. We are looking at recommending a 5% tuition increase for the preschool for the upcoming school year. But this will give you an idea of what our current tuition revenues look like and then what a percentage increase looks like. The line below does include some of the information about what we get in from Head Start. Head Start does pay us for the students that attend based on their attendance. The last couple of years as well, Head Start has given us additional funding last year and this year, and I believe the year before I got here, they've given us some additional funding that comes through ESSER funding through them, so we're sort of pass-through for that. So there has been some increased revenue, but as that funding sort of depletes, therefore we will be seeing some of those extra revenues from them as well. We currently have 17 Head Start seats that we are able to take for students and 17 what's called ADA slots, which is the free and reduced slots for students. Are there any other questions?
Are all those 17 spots utilized every year?
They are not. We're currently at 15 that have filled. If we can find more, we will fill them. We can ask Head Start for more, and they'll give us more. One of the barriers that we've heard from families and talking to our social worker is transportation. We are working on looking at some solutions for that. But we'll probably talk about that at a later date. But we do think we've got some solutions for that from them, from Head Start and from the district as well. There's some of those families who need that as well.
Thank you. All right, I have some more if no one else is going to jump right in. I would love to be taken back to Dr. Loyette. I'd love to see a budget, like an actual budget. I want to see how much the online system is. I know that would be a great resource for our families.
That's actually in the Discover Club portion.
Okay.
Of it also because the online system is not just tied to preschool, so it would be tied to all the tuition programs that we have. So we want to be able to generate that information for families because families that pay for preschool tuition but then also go to Discover Club, those are 2 different payment documents and payment tracking. So we're looking at actually one system for families to charge tuition in both places. They would see the charges, they'd be able to pay online. Those systems do range in price from anywhere from $2,000 a year to $8,000 a year, just depending on what you're looking for. So we are still in the process of researching those. We don't have a final number, but it just depends on the system that we're looking at. But we're looking at comparing two things to the state as well. So we're just trying to get in line with what's the state doing and where we're at with on that.
And I would love to see a budget about what are we missing. So I imagine that our talent is what we spend the most money on, and so that has gone up, and I know that expenses have also gone up, but I'd like to see that broken out with what the cost of the teachers versus the expenses, and what have we been missing, and what do we want that we haven't been able to provide on our current structure. So take that back.
Yeah, well, and this is also a point for Mr. Holzer in that the preschool is not self-funded, so there is investment of additional dollars because we pay at commensurate with certificated staff as opposed to barely minimum wage in most other programs. So that is a decision that the board has continued to affirm, and I believe we would be interested in that, but it is a transparency for this. This does not cover the entire budget of the preschool, regardless of if we raise preschool tuition rates.
Yes, and you're licensed and accredited, which also
Right.
additional
Yeah.
Educational stipulations for staff. So, but we cover all that. So.
How many people have been unable to attend? I heard the information about transportation. I know that's been an ongoing discussion. Were we not able to provide preschool to people who wanted it?
Off the top of my head, I don't know for sure, but I think the social worker is running the list right now.
Okay.
To kind of keep track of that. So it's been a couple of conversations I think over. Head Start has been very generous with their funding, especially the additional funding, and sending that to us. And so we're just working on permissions of what we're allowed to spend some of the additional funding that's coming in from them on. And so with the transportation of preschoolers, that requires some extra things. Choosing to transport them. So,
Actually, I'm thinking physical capacity, the actual physical space. Do we have enough room for everybody
Yes.
who wanted to attend?
That's a question I'm not aware of. That you
Okay.
asked actually about that. I don't know what the wait list is. If there is one. That's not aware of. So, but I imagine if she's got capacity 155 and 145 enrolled, then the answer to that would be that we probably got everybody on the list in, but that there is a handful of families that need transportation.
I think the limiting factor, I think, oftentimes is also whether or not families can get into aftercare, which you're going to talk to us about next, right? So.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Moving on to 3.03, Discover Club tuition.
All right, round two. Welcome. Okay. Look myself here. Okay. So we're also talking about tuition with Discover Club. And as we look forward, we are also recommending a 5% increase with Discover Club as well. Again, we don't think we have seen an increase in this tuition since 2020, but we have had inflation costs as well as staff raises and costs associated with that. Additional supply costs, activities costs, looking at updating material supplies, and just updating programming in general. Increasing, and again, increasing the expenditures with looking at an online system that would be a yearly cost. This is this grade comparison chart specific to some costs associated with preschool before and after care and school age before and after care. And so the thing to differentiate a little bit about this that is difficult to get is that sometimes schools will incorporate before and after care and our hours and their total cost into one tuition payment for preschool. Sometimes it's broken out. It really just varies. So we did our best to try to kind of compare apples to apples. And so that's what this is. What we're looking at is an average before care rate and after care. Before care is usually less hours, so it usually costs less. After care is usually longer, so it usually costs more. Preschool is usually more expensive because the ratios are different. So the ratios for preschool care is 1 to 10. The ratio for aftercare for older school age kids is 1 to 16. So you have less staff with that, so there's usually less cost. The average in the area for after school care, and again, We talked about a 5% increase. We talked about a 5% increase across our entire rate schedule, but we're talking about the highest rate when we are proposing this, just so that you get one overview, is a 5-day PM rate, which is our highest rate that we charge. The average is $226, and we currently charge $158 a month. Several of these, also just to note, several of these area schools are using aftercare. Some of them are Y Club also, and then we do partner with Y Club for the older grades. So first grade on up through sixth grade uses Y Club, and preschool and kindergarten are staffed with Discover Club. Looking, if you try to break it down by a daily rate, one of the things the state does put out, in addition with some state subsidy for childcare, is sort of the market rate. They do this just about every year. We currently charge $9 a day for our aftercare rate. For-profit aftercare rate, which is a private aftercare program that you look at, is $18 a day, and an average daily rate based on the previous chart that you saw is about $11 a day for aftercare rate. And when we looked at our expenditures and our revenues, the last several years, we have had revenues in all years, and we are estimating with the budget and the revenues, those have gone down. We did again partner with Y Club, so they took some of our revenues because we couldn't find the staff. And the same thing has happened this year as well. In addition to that, the cost of bringing the program with the staff, as well as not having raised the tuition rates and not servicing as many children. In addition to that, we did change the bell schedule last year. I don't know if you remember that, but that did also affect the morning care, especially at the ECC. We went from servicing, I think it was 20 or 30 morning care kids to about 10 or 11. So there was almost no one that needed morning care. The elementary, Y Club did toy with and put out for morning care. They had 2 kids sign up for morning care, and so they called and they were like, yeah, we don't really need it. So the 2 or 3 families that signed up tapped out, and so they actually don't even offer morning care over there either. So Y Club offers aftercare from first grade on up, and we offer morning care to anybody at CC that needs it, which is 11 or so days. This is our enrollment overview for the last few years. So we did add the Y Club in here so you can see how many kids they are servicing. There's our 11 AM kids. We are servicing 89 pre-K and K kids. Y Club is servicing 48. As of right now, we do not have any kids on our waiting list in Discover Club. We've managed to get everybody in. Betty, thank you very much. Does a beyond phenomenal job of finding people. And as soon as she finds people, we had more kids in that are on our list. And by November, everybody we had on our list was in. If you hear of anybody that thinks that they're still on a waiting list for Discover Club, please let us know, because we don't know where they are. Everybody we have on the list is currently in care. Y Club does have a waiting list for first and second grade. They do not have one at the elementary. They have, in order to serve more than 48 kids at the first and second grade level, they have to have a supervisor. They finally found a supervisor, and the state compliance officer was no longer, and in order to expand that, they have to submit things to the state, and we don't have anybody to submit to. That poses an issue. When they finally got someone, they're still looking for staff. So there's some staffing issues, but as soon as they get the staff, they also will pull kids off of the waiting list. So they are looking to expand more as well. It continues to be a staffing issue for them as well. A couple of other things to note: the state has made some changes. So there are rule changes that the legislature has pushed out that is has allowed us to add 16-year-olds to our staff. So that means that we can hire 16-year-olds and count them in ratio, which has not been the case in the past. It used to be 18. So we're now allowed to hire 16-year-olds. You can't leave them alone, but we're allowed to hire them, which is great because we just need people to watch children. So we don't need them left by themselves. We just need lots of people to watch children. So that is also what Y Club is pushing out. So if you know any 16-year-olds, Y Club's hiring, as are we if we need any more children to put into care. The thing about that, though, is that we are also licensed and accredited, and because we're accredited, accreditation is not currently recognizing that rule. So I'm in great hopes that accreditation, licensing, and all of the rules with everybody involved will get it together and sort of align themselves, but they're not there yet. So, when looking at the rate change comparison, we do have just sort of this is what it'll mean to a family. So currently it's $9 a day, it would be $9.45 a day if we get a 5% increase. Currently it's $15.84 a year, and it would go up to $1663.20 a year per family. Just so you're aware of some of the changes and processes, we did start a short Google sign-up based on some feedback from families when they signed up with us. They would upload and it would sort of give us a timestamp, but then they never were sure if their stuff got uploaded. And we get inundated with, did my stuff upload? And so we worked with Betty and we did a short Google sign up for families so we knew who wants Discover Club. And those time-stamped forms then got emailed back to parents. So if anybody signed up, did you get it? And did it work? So we did hear back from some parents that it was working. So they immediately got an email as soon as they signed up. It showed the timestamp on their form so that they knew that they had that. We did go to re-enrollment last year as well to see who needs it, who's already in it, and just re-enroll because kids roll up every year. And so we knew we'd have space. We just needed to, who needs it? Wire Club was taking a group of kids for us, so we were able to sort of ascertain how many spaces we would have and then take that off the list and gather and then start hiring the additional staff. And then it really just trying to create less panic for parents because that's really part of the issue. Especially at the preschool level, a lot of families are enrolling in preschool, and if they have a spot someplace else and they've given that spot up and come to us, the preschool re-enrolls them. There is really no reason for us not to try to continue to re-enroll and then just open up those new spots as they arise. And then we also did an automation of parent checking in and out, so parents can kind of go up and to a little kiosk and they check their kids in and out. We have a timestamp of who's there and who's not. That is also helping us check how many kids do we have and what time are they there. So if we see that we have a trend where we have one child left between the hours of 5 and 6, we need to probably have a conversation about what our hours are. If bell schedules change and we see an influx in the morning, in the afternoon, we just really want to be able to sort of have an automated way to tell how many kids there are at what times. Continued concerns are always going to be staffing and just due to the ratios to make sure that we're always staffed. Preschool Discover Club and kindergarten Discover Club have to be separated because of the ratios and the age differences. They have to be separated staff-wise. The state requirements, like I said, they are in the process of changing the rules to allow for some younger kids to count the ratios, so that's helpful. And then YMCA is expanding their license to allow for more kids. And then state issues with staff can cause delays. So they also have staffing issues, and we just need to actually be patient with everyone. Other continued progress that we're having, we are currently serving 100 kids in Discover Club with our AM and PM count. I can tell you the field this year, as far as the climate and staffing, Betty's done a phenomenal job. I don't feel who's covering Discover Club this afternoon that we felt last year with having to cover with subs and the inconsistency. We have consistent staff. Betty has worked to train them. They're phenomenal. We're covered a lot of the time, and it's fabulous. So it's really important for the kids. They need to have that consistency with staff so they know who's there, who to talk to, and who's important in their lives after school so that the parents can expect it, and the staff and the children can expect to see the same faces. We do want to continue to look at programming. We want to update materials and supplies. We want to update the program. We want to give the kids better experiences in the aftercare program and work on that. And again, updating the tuition tracking system. We have a lot of people working really hard to make sure things are accurate, and they're doing a very good job of that. But there are easier ways to do that without spending so much time with some of our staff and stressing people out. So we really want to look at making something a little more automated for them. And then, again, one other thing we added on the Discover Club website, there is another Google form, but it's just a short form. Anybody that wants information about before and after care or wants to receive information, just put your information on there. And then I have an ongoing, all of the time mailing list to send information out. So when we do send out information about signups, it is there, and we have sort of a place to go to. Because part of our issue is also I don't know who wants or needs the information. All I have is to send it out to people in the school district, and if we have people that are signing up for preschool, we don't know that they want aftercare necessarily, so they can go with their information on our Discover Public Mail, unless we can send that same sign-up information, and then they'll get information about signing up as well. Any questions?
So there was some like intermingling here of like the Y Club stuff and the MRH Discover Club. We have no authority over the tuition rates that the Y is charging. I know that's been part of the negotiation, obviously, of the district entering into that. So just clarifying, we're really only talking about the care for our kids who need before care at the ECC and our pre-K and kindergarten kids. Great. I am curious about, you mentioned the Google form. Is that something that got tested out with the preschool re-enrollment that just happened? Is that what you were talking about, or did that actually happen at the beginning of?
The interest form or the
enrollment form with timestamps?
Last year.
It was,
okay. Tested out last year
Okay.
with a couple of people prior to enrollment ever happening. And then it got tested, it went live last year.
Okay, great. So that will be part of this
100%.
re-enrollment of preschool happening now, and then new
It worked
preschool
well last
enrolling.
year,
Okay.
mostly received positive feedback. The families, even when we broke Google for a hot second, it came right back on, and people were able to go out of this.
Great,
So.
yes, I think the uncertainty is obviously a big pain point for families, especially as one of their first interactions with the district and the ECC. As far as you're talking about increasing licensure for the Y Club, is there a thought that kindergarten would get pushed to the Y at some point, or not?
I don't think so at
Okay.
this point. I think that we're able to staff it. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as we're able to staff it,
Okay.
we're happy to take it. The rules with licensure, because ECC is so big and has lots of entrances, licensure said, you just cross lines or spaces, but we have 2 entrances.
Right.
For parents, we have enough space, enough playground space, so it's really a great place to do it. Everybody's got enough space, everybody's got enough areas to work out of, so it will work, and I think they will be able to be just fine. So I foresee pre-K and K staying where it is,
Okay.
that side of the building.
Great. And the projections, I appreciate the projections as far as like who we think is going to need it next year, either the Y Club spaces or the district-run programs. Are we feeling like we have enough capacity for, like what's coming?
We are only licensed to serve 155 kids. Like that's based on the size of the
Right.
space that we have.
Yeah.
So you have to keep that in mind. no matter
Regardless.
what.
Okay.
And so we're servicing about 100 kids, 89 in the afternoon. And you want to make sure also, again, like I said, that we have engaging programming and spaces. And so the thing about keeping in mind where we're servicing, I'm not saying that, if we have a need, we want to look at it and try to staff it, but we also have to watch how we're staffing that, because you're going to have to start breaking kids up into classrooms, which causes more staffing.
Yeah.
So it's just something that we really will have to continue to look at, because you can't put, you can put so many kids in a multi-purpose room, you can put a bunch of kids in the piazza, but you have to think about, we want to get them outside as much as possible, but it's raining and snowing, you can't take them outside. So where are those spaces that we can use for those kids? And if it's in classrooms, that's fine, but then we have to have, 2 to 3 people in those classrooms and have enough space in those classrooms to house each of those groups of kids. And those classrooms have to be a certain size to house so many kids. So we will continue to deal with all of those many details on our own, but as long as we continue to see the need, we will continue to try to guesstimate that. So the more people that sign up on the interest list that give us an idea of who needs it, the more idea we'll have. I do feel like we have a pretty consistent number of families who are in need. And again, like I said, anybody that has reached out to us that was in need of care, they have gotten it. So we have found mistakes for everybody in the last 2 years since I told her. She's a miracle worker. And finding people to staff it as well as finding space for kids.
Yes.
Do you have Is there a date coming up where parents are going to start re-enrolling for next year?
We have not released that yet, but
Okay.
yes, we are going to start re-enrollment and open that up for families, and then we'll open up for everyone else beyond that. So
And that gets pushed out how, where, and when-ish?
yeah, so we would send it out to the whole district, and again, on that mailing list, and then any avenues that Ed has to push it out to the public, yell it from the sides of the streets or wherever, so. Posted a picture.
So as far as the materials and supplies, because I think you said you want to get better for the kids, what do we have now that we looking towards for the future as far as material and supplies?
Great question. So we have materials and supplies for the kids to use and toys for them to use. We want to look at updating them.
Okay.
Some of them need to be retired. And then I would also like to go looking at some other area programs and what they're doing in their before and after care programs, and looking at the actual aftercare programming with Ms. Betty, and making some programming decisions that's good for this district in order to make those decisions. So I do not have answers for you yet,
Okay.
but I can tell you it's going to cost, us to send a little supply.
Okay. And as far as students 16 years and older to work, so are we waiting for the state to say okay, or is something that we can already do? And what does training look like? I know Ms. Betty gonna do a good job training them, but is there any like certification or anything they need, just coming to a job for a 16-year-old and make sure the kid's okay?
Yeah, the state has already said it's okay, so they already made the rule change, and then we have a specific list of training, it's a whole checklist that Betty goes through with everybody. There's hours and hours and hours of training that they have to go through, not only for the district to be hired, but also for licensing that they have to go through as well. So we take care of all of that. So it's a lot of training, and then they get in-house training as they watch the kids.
Thank you.
We have tried to recruit current students before, and we all know how busy our high school students are. So I wish you luck in finding someone who is not as busy as Katie Corcoran here.
Anything else? Thank you for that very complete
Thank you.
presentation. Much
You're very welcome.
appreciated.
Anything else? Give us a holler. Thank you so much.
All right. Moving on to Admin Communications 4.01 Program Evaluation. Dr. Gee, for Library Media Resources.
Yes, I am queuing up the slide presentation, but I have three very talented individuals that will walk us through our library media resources program evaluation. We're excited to bring this to you mostly because we have not seen a library program evaluation for a couple of years. So we had fallen out of cycle and are seeking to get back in cycle and bring something to the board of how we're doing with our library program and how we might think about the next generation. All right, you guys are up, and give me the point when you're ready for me to go.
Let me just introduce your MRH librarians, Emily Baker at the middle school, high school, Amanda Meir at the elementary, and myself, Paula Justice at the ECC.
Welcome.
How we connect to the district strategic plan. We feel our district libraries play a key role in supporting and promoting the mission and vision of the district, providing diverse materials and ensuring our libraries are inclusive, nurturing, safe places for kids to learn and discover and research whatever it is they're comfortable doing.
So this is my turn. I'm going to update you on our current goals from the last time we did our evaluation. So I'm not going to read through all of this slide, but I'll just give you the overview. So we had 4 major goals in 2019 when we did our last program eval. The first one was to continue to add new materials and weed out items that were worn or outdated. It was also to update nonfiction at all our levels to make sure the collections were more current and relevant. We did meet that goal. You can see that we broke it down in the evidence portion between the ECC, the elementary, and the middle school and high school. Weeded is a term that we use for books that are taken out of the system and then added as ones that we add back into the system. The second one is to transfer books from the elementary school to the ECC for our emergent readers. We did meet that. Those were both physically transferred from the elementary to the ECC and also done online in our library catalog. The third one was to increase library funds at all levels to meet the demands of increasing student enrollment as well as cost of materials. We did also focus that on nonfiction because that is a very important part of our collections to update. And so we did meet that. We did put in short term, kind of in parentheses there, because all of our buildings were given more funds to refresh our nonfiction collections for 1 to 2 years. Some of us have gotten additional funds after that point, but between all of our libraries, it was not continued past those 1 to 2 years. And then the last one was steps should be taken to provide equitable library time and access to materials at the ECC. We did meet that. Our preschool is now included in the specialist rotation, and I'm very thankful for that because my daughter is one of the lucky ones that gets to see Miss Justice because the preschool is involved.
Okay, and I'm going to cover our proposed goals for the next 2 years. We have 2 major goals, and the first one can be broken down into a few different components. I'm going to try not to read straight off the slides, but that is tiny print. First, we want to create a cohesive district library program so that students moving from the ECC up to elementary, up to middle school, and then finally high school can see the connections in our library program, and they can build on their learning from each grade level and each building, and ultimately become, adults who are avid library users and consumers of information. So the components that go into building a cohesive district library program. First, promoting our Maslow's State Award nominees. Those are, I think there's now 4 different book awards that are emphasized at each level among different genres. And so we plan to continue promoting those in each of our buildings, having reading incentive programs and things for that. Also continuing to promote banned books, expanding our collection of literature about other marginalized groups. We'd like to create at least 3 opportunities each year for students from different buildings with different levels to come together and encourage literacy and promote that love of reading. We're not totally sure what that's going to look like yet, but we are taking care of some ideas. Create a scope and sequence for the district program. We've been waiting for Maslin and Desi to officially approve standards for a while now, but they are coming. And once that happens, we can move forward on having a scope and sequence that really builds all the way from the preschoolers with the ECC up to our students who are ready to graduate. And then finally, the last part here says utilize guidance from the DESI Exemplary School Library Program Scoring Guide. That's kind of a mouthful. But there are a number of things in that document that we can use to kind of think about how we want to continue to improve our library programs and the libraries and physical spaces and things themselves. There's a lot of guidance in there for what libraries should be working toward. Finally, our next major goal is to run a tidal wave analysis. That's just kind of our inventory that we keep of all the library materials. We do that annually and then analyze, what we have in our collections so that we can figure out what needs to be replaced or where we're lacking materials. And then to do an annual inventory at one of the buildings each year. We're going to be starting with my building, the elementary school this year, which really needs to be done, especially since we're still kind of putting things back together after all the flooding everything last year. So I'm very excited to have an updated inventory and have all that put together at the end of this school year. So those are, and then, sorry, the part in bold there was about to move the average fiction and nonfiction copyright dates 2 to 4 years. Make those more current.
I have a question. This is more of I guess for the high school librarians. Do we have any reciprocity agreements with any of the universities around here?
We do belong to a group that helps to organize that. It's they were using kind of an archaic system of the piece of paper that has the 3 different colors, and you've got a ticket to go to the library. I did have a whole lot of kids that made use of that. And so we kind of moved away from it. We've also got some pretty robust databases. So I think a lot of kids found what they needed that way. But if kids if kids come to me and they are interested in doing that, then there are ways that we can make that happen.
I guess my question though is, I mean, I suppose there's been a trend lately, to move away from the actual physical books to more electronic copies of books. I mean, sometimes for space, but sometimes if you've got like a subscription to like a reference book or whatever, sometimes it's easier to buy the e-copy of it and that gets updated quicker. But is that something you're taking into account? Like, I mean, I don't know if the kids can check out ebooks on versus like the actual physical book, or like how many copies you would be able to get on an ebook versus how many copies you would actually be able to get on a hardback
So
book.
we're actually almost ready to go forward with Sora, which is something that public libraries have access to, and because we're a public institution, we get a discount and actually a pretty large catalog of ebooks that we would get access to because we're a part of the MOREnet consortium. So the funds were just approved for that, so I'm going to go ahead and purchase that for the whole district actually. And then I did take into account a lot of the reference books that I get like previews of. They have, I just put some on the shelf, that's why I'm pointing over there. So they come with not just the print edition, but on the back there's a QR code and it takes them to an online version which then can be updated. So there are some ways that we can kind of utilize both of those in one way.
And additionally, what about like ebooks, like maybe for some of our kids that have like visual learning issues or whatnot? Is that something also you're taking into account, or I don't even know if that's something that's part of?
There's some resources that we can reach out to. Like Conservation School for the Blind has some ways that you can kind of partner with them if you have students that would benefit from having some of their resources. And then ebook wise, we're kind of just getting, I had an ebook service during COVID, and it was specifically with a group that I purchased a subscription from, Junior Library Guild. They discontinued that pretty abruptly. So it's taken us a little while to kind of figure out what's the best way of getting ebooks, and Sora is going to be a great, I wish Abby Earl was here because I can't think of the number, but it's thousands of books that we'll get access to, and then we can also add additional ones that we purchase individually as well. It seems to be great.
Thank you.
I have a question. Appreciate the attempts to, quantify exactly how many books are in each collection and copyright dates and how much has been removed. I am curious about, it doesn't appear that any books have been added at the elementary, and I don't know if that was just an omission or if that, what that speaks to. It also just gives me question marks because I appreciate that there's an attempt to have equitable distribution of the budget going forward for purchasing based on how many students are in each building, but if there is a need to kind of catch up on buying books at the elementary school, I think that is an effort, we don't need to be equal in order to, make sure we're providing for a gap that may have existed previously.
So I can speak to that a little bit. Partly that was because we ran these numbers at the very beginning of the school year, and this is my first year here. And so, and the elementary library, like we said, has not had an inventory done in a long time. And as a result of the flooding and then COVID before that, there's just a lot of things that have been lost that the system thinks are the system thinks are still there, and they're, but books that have been added, I've made purchases this year for, our award winners, and I sent Dr. McGee some numbers and some categories and things that we've made purchases of. I can run another report and find the exact number. This was just
Sure, yeah. And, you know, this will obviously help inform budgeting that's happening now, but appreciate that, and perhaps we will be able to look at some of those gaps more explicitly as we move into the opportunity for purchasing. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Item 4.02, MSIP 6 update. Dr. Zanders Phillips.
Thank you. Dr. McGee is going to drive for me and pull that up. No worries.
He might.
Amen.
He'll think about it.
So I'll go ahead and begin. Good evening, members of the board. I am here to present the MSIP 6 update for our people under the personnel section. This presentation is aligned to our MSIP 6 goals. MSIP 6 is the Missouri School Improvement Plan, which that is the accountability system that sets expectations for school districts. So it governs our practice and our work. It's also the accrediting agency or oversight committee that determines how schools are accredited. So you'll see this first slide really shows you how this presentation is tied to the MSIP 6 goal under leadership. L9 is a specific goal, and I highlighted some areas that really speak to how the connections are made, specifically with hiring and recruitment and ensuring that we have a high quality and student-centered staff for our students. The next slide shows you our strategic plan for our people, and this is specifically MRH's goal. And again, I've highlighted some areas there. This is in alignment with our equity goals as it relates to ensuring that we have diversity in our recruitment strategies and that we are attracting candidates from diverse backgrounds as well. So one of the things that we're looking at is on next week, actually on February 24th, this is not only an MRH priority, but it's also regionally a priority for many districts. And so Kirkwood School District, Lindbergh, Maplewood, Richmond Heights, of course, and Webster Groves are partnering together to host a hiring fair. This fair will rotate between each district every year. So in 2 more years, MRH will be the host for that particular fair. And the goal is for individuals to come out. They'll have an opportunity to see all 4 districts. Hopefully they'll like us. We are the smallest district there. So the partnership is really powerful for us because some of the staffing and capacity issues really help us being a little bit smaller and leaner than some of the other districts. And so that's one of the tangible ways that shows that we are really working to promote and recruit for diversity. This is the rationale for this particular presentation. Again, I wanted to share a part of this presentation certainly is looking at staffing, but there's an intentional focus on diversity among not only the buildings, but positions themselves as well. So you'll see that highlighted throughout the presentation. This is really small, so I apologize in advance, and I know you've had this slide, the slide deck earlier on, so you can see. My goal is to be able to show you the district a snapshot at a glance. And so you'll see those locations, central office, the high school, middle school, elementary, and the ECC, so those buildings or those departments. And then at the bottom in the shaded area is district overall. So you'll see those also racial ethnic categories, and these are 4 years, and it shows you from 2021 to our current year of 2024. This shows you the percentages of individuals that we have and their racial and ethnic background. The next slide actually shows you just a different visual representation. You have in the gray individual staff members that identify as white. In the blue, those are all of those other racial ethnic categories combined. So it's just a different way of seeing information. This is specific to central office. I wanted to also break down the numbers and show you the actual number of people. So you'll see from 2021 to 2024, the number of individuals who are in central office. And then you'll also see those classifications of the roles. So whether they're supervisors, some individuals are certified teachers, some of them are student services, and then of course at the bottom is CO admin. And again, each category shows you the year and the ethnicity and how many people are in those particular slots. You will notice that in some areas you'll see like a 0.5 or a 0.2 or 0.8. That is because we do have shared staff. So some individuals are split between multiple areas, and so it might seem as though that person is associated with one particular area, whether that's central office or a building, but that person might actually have shared responsibilities throughout our system. This is the same for the high school. So you see a numerical number which shows you how many people in terms of individuals are actually assigned to the high school. Those 4 years, you see the different categories from counselor, aides, building, admin. It doesn't necessarily represent everyone, but absolutely all of the certified staff. Things like if you think about maybe our secretarial support staff, our custodial staff. So there are some areas that are missing, but for the purpose of this presentation, I really wanted to make sure we're focusing on our certificated staff, and then there are some other areas where you might see people added on as well.
For clarification, what do the letters across the top mean?
Oh, the I is for American Indian.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then again, showing you a different visuals, trying to find another opportunity of giving you that information in a different way that shows you a different visual representation of the high school. Again, you'll see white and then all of the other categories in blue, and then over the course of the years. This shows you the middle school, number of staff members. You follow that same pattern, so I'll give you an opportunity to kind of look at it. And again, that's the number of people that you see there and then their classification or how they are actually employed in terms of the position type. And then that next slide, again, shows you the visual as well. Then we'll go on to the elementary building. You'll see the number of staff members. This is also helpful for individuals who are curious about the number of staff members who are assigned to buildings. You can see that information there. Again, there are some categories that are support staff that are not included, but that information is there for your purview to be able to kind of check out those individual positions and how they may vary from year to year. And then we're going to show you that other graphic so you can see it in a different way. And then finally, we're going to have the Early Childhood Center. And this shows you the staffing. And again, just remember that some of those percentage points, it might mean that maybe someone is employed and they're not employed in a full-time capacity. Maybe they're 0.5, 0.66. It could also mean if they're not part-time, that they could be split among buildings. And so there are a lot of different explanations for why those numbers don't round out to an even number. And then the next slide shows you that visual representation again in this particular setting. So you see Early Childhood Center, how that breaks down between white employees or staff members, and then individuals who identify as other racial and ethnic groups are the blue. And then finally, I was curious, how does this all relate to student population? And my goal was to be able to let you know what the diversity looked like in the buildings for each student. For those students, I do have that information, but unfortunately I wasn't able to go back and put those slides in there. But I know that our Director of Student Services, Mr. Vince Estrada, also presents on that as well. So I'm sure that information is accessible, but again, I do have information on that. This shows you the district total from each year. So from 21, 22, 23, 24. Again, my goal was to be able to look at the high school and share the diversity for the student group there, middle school, elementary, and ECC. Again, I have it, he presents on it, but if you have questions about that breakdown, this shows you those categories, and you can see where we are currently for the 2024 school year in terms of our student demographics and how individuals self-identify in terms of race. So that is the end of my report. Can I answer any questions for you that you might have?
I have a question. It's more of if you could explain a little bit why diversity is important. It's not just because it's something that we value, but actually how it can benefit students from having a diverse staff that also represents what they look like. I mean, I don't know off the top of your head if you can't answer that question. But
I absolutely could answer that question. Diversity is really important. I think diversity is a gift, and it's something that should be celebrated. Our world is becoming more geographically and multiculturally diverse, and I think that we have a responsibility to ensure that the individuals who are working in our school, whether it's certified staff or support staff, represent not only our population of students that we serve here in Maplewood in the Richmond Heights area, but the greater world as well. Like, we don't live in a bubble. Our kids are going to go out to work and to the workforce, the military, to higher education, and they're going to see that diversity. And so I think we have a responsibility, whether it is our white students or our students of color, to make sure that we are providing those opportunities for them here. I think when you talk about, we just had the library media specialist present. So when we talk about curriculum and that level of cultural competence and showing individuals, are providing opportunities for them to see individuals and to have individuals share their experiences that mirror theirs, and then also, so those kind of mirrors and then those windows where they can see glimpses of the outside world and how other people might experience those same things, I think are really important. When we're talking about the achievement gap or the opportunity gap for our students of color or our super subgroups, there's a lot of research, and it's really compelling about how teachers of color have that there's an increase in student achievement. Students come to school more. They feel a sense of connection and belonging, that there's a trusted adult that understands them. That they not only graduate from high school but matriculate on to higher education. I could go on and on and on, but I know I have a window of time. So there's benefits not only to students of color but white students as well, and the research is pretty clear on that.
Okay, and I just want to kind of emphasize too. You'd agree it's a fair statement that diversity doesn't mean unqualified, and that we're looking for the most qualified and diverse staff that we can get. So
Absolutely.
It's not about cutting corners, it's about finding good fits for the district.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I am curious, in the strategic plan language and probably in the previous CSIP plan language, I think we have consistently used the word diverse staff without necessarily articulating racial diversity. Are there other aspects of diverse identities that we're interested in with our staff? And I don't know if there isn't necessarily the same sort of record keeping on some of those metrics, and so perhaps that's why we're not seeing that here versus there is more awareness, I think, obviously, of the way that people identify racially.
I think that so for me, I think any difference that will make a difference is important. And so when I think about, for example, the number, 90% of the teachers in the state of Missouri are white, over 90%. And then if you look at like black males, they make up about 2%. So like there's some categories in terms of maybe gender or sexual orientation, religious diversity. There are lots of different types of diversity of thought, right? I think that there are lots of different types of diversity that we can certainly expose our students to because they make up our greater world. It is certainly easier, I think, to look at racial diversity, and I think it's one of those areas where there's a lot of opportunity to grow, although I did not put the actual population in for the particular buildings, and I don't want to explicitly call some of the buildings out, but there might be buildings where the staff is like 85 to 90% white, and the student population is 63% white. And so all of those other racial groups, be it Hispanic, Pacific Islander, African American, multiracial, like they don't always see individuals that look like them. And it's very possible that students might enter our buildings in pre-K and graduate from high school and not have a teacher that is not a white teacher that represents a different diversity. And so those are things that I think are lost opportunities for us.
Yeah, it's not a question, but it is a noticing for me in the way that you've presented this data that the building that is closest to having a percentage of teachers who are not white that reflects as close as possible with our student population is the elementary school. And, that could be a more positive frame on, we know that there were teachers who left that building last year. The only way that the racial makeup of a building can be altered is if there are retirements or resignations, right? So the opportunity to bring new people in gives us an opportunity to increase the way that our district staff reflect the student body. We're not at the point of reflecting the percentages of our student body in any of our buildings, right. But that is looking at the more historical numbers of consistent low percentages of diversity is just, again, a curiosity as I think about the amount of times that commitment has been expressed by this community over the last decade plus. So
I definitely think, I don't have the actual statistics and the numbers, but just off of the top of my head and thinking about individuals who it was a part of their hiring process and brought in, I can think of 2 Hispanic teachers, 1 Asian and 2 African American. So that came in with that cohort, if you will. So I would say that is probably most definitely true, that it added to the diversity of that building. Any other questions?
I guess one question I did have about recruitment, and without getting too into exactly how you're doing it, but is it just like a local generalized in the state of Missouri recruitment, or is it a national recruitment? I mean, because there are plenty of HBCs, there are plenty of other places that may want to come, or people that went away to college to go be an educator, and then or study education, and then inevitably find their way back to St. Louis, as one does, and so that they might actually be interested in here. So, how broad is this search?
Great question. So we have definitely expanded our reach. I think that I believe that we've become more creative, and I think oftentimes you can find staff of color if you know where and how to look and promote, and you're willing to kind of try different things. And so we've looked at higher education. You spoke of HBCUs, so locally that's Harris Stowe State University. We've partnered with UMSO as well. We have historically had a partnership with Mizzou, which is an amazing partnership, but if you think about the diversity of the educational program, it's not going to yield as much diversity in terms of racial and ethnic background as maybe a UMSO or Harris Stowe might, right? So those are things that we've done. Not only are we promoting in Missouri MOREAP, which is what most people do, but we've also looked at Indeed and Handshake, and we've looked at promoting in, I just blanked on the last one. There are a couple of different options. We've posted in local organizations like MOASPA or MOASPA, which is like a personnel group. So we've done a lot in terms of trying to make sure that we have those partnerships with other organizations outside of what has been like the common or consistent partners. We still have those, but again, making sure that we broaden our reach for sure.
I'd also like to add, in developing our collaboration with St. Louis University, we are working directly with 18-year-olds who are freshmen choosing education and getting them on our campus to make sure that we show how awesome education is here and how great it is to work in this community.
Cool.
The second thing is we also have a very active and amazing superintendent that gets out there and shares the message of MRH. So that is on Twitter, follow her at MRH Soup, and make sure that you get connected to all the things that are out there. Like, she is an active participant and advocate for our community, and that's a great thing.
Absolutely. And our department, our director of communications has certainly helped with tweeting out things and also finding more opportunities where we can post our openings. And then we created, Dr. Bouchard and I wrote a Grow Your Own grant, and that grant was specifically for our support staff members, individuals who are connected to our schools that we know are doing great work on behalf of kids, to help those individuals to go into the field of education. And a lot of those people and staff members who are benefited from it are staff members of color.
Thank you.
I think it's a great thing that all 4 school districts is coming together to do a diverse recruitment. One thing I notice as I'm in the community and I'm talking to different teachers, representation does matter.
Absolutely.
It's just when you guys are having these recruitment fairs and you're really selling our district, you got to realize that some African American teachers want to be in those districts where the students look like them, because they want them to not just learn, but to have a better life. So it's like they're mentors to the kids. They want the best. So they would stay in those school districts like Normandy or St. Louis Public, or they might go out to more of a district that's more white, that have black students, Hispanic students, so they can have representation at that district. It's just that when you're out there talking to them, it's like you really got to sell it to come here, because we have more graduates coming out who are more aware of what's going on in society, and they want to be in those spaces to where the needs are really more than maybe here at Maplewood or Kirkwood or Webster. So to really convince them why our school is good for you and the culture, because that's a lot of things non-white look for when any job is the culture. How am I going to fit in when I do come to this school district, in this building? What is it like?
You spoke to a great piece that made me think about, like, one of the keys to ensuring that you increase your diversity is not only the recruitment and hiring efforts. We're going to do those things, and we're going to continue to be creative and think outside the box there, but is retaining the staff that we do have, right? So I think that certainly, I feel like regardless of the staff members are staff members of color, or if they are white staff members, if I'm a part of your process, or even if you were here before I arrive, I have a responsibility to make sure that you are well and to be able to support you. And so certainly if I'm seeking these people out to come and work for MRH, that's a great thing, but I still have a responsibility to them while they're here to make sure that I'm not only growing them, but supporting them. And sometimes that's social emotional support. Sometimes it is difficult. I've worked in diverse districts, and I've worked in districts where I was the only black female, right, administrator in the district, and so in a very large system. And so I know what that feels like as well. And so I think the goal is to make sure that you're always checking in and letting people know that you're there, and that if it's a listening ear, if it's a PD, or if it's whatever we can do to offer to support them, I think that is our responsibility.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 4.03, construction update. I'm going to go out on a limb and think that that's Mr. Chris Holzer.
It will be, yes. And I did realize that I probably spent a little too much time talking about the construction project and less time talking about the change orders. So I'll mention the construction-related change orders here. Change order number 40, let me get back to where I was.
42?
42 and 43.
Thank you. 42 is for time only. That's an extension to get us through the end of November as far as the time goes. And actually 43 is a very small net amount, right around $200. We had some value engineering that removed about $6,300 from the total cost of some of the ductwork, and that brought that change order to very small. And as our president has already mentioned, 44 paperwork was tardy for this meeting, so we'll clean that one up next month.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody wants to know?
I did see on the construction update that there's a climbing wall listed there.
Yes.
Did we have somebody who wanted to give us a climbing wall once upon a time? We might have to.
I know that we received about $50,000 to offset the cost of said climbing wall.
So that was a curiosity there with the cost that was listed. I was wondering if that was potentially coming out of some additional support, not just district funds.
Yes.
So, okay.
That's an offset.
Great. I knew that was Dr. Dietrich's project, but
Yes.
I figured you might recall that
Indeed.
financial promise as well.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the climbing wall.
Thank you. 4.04, Proposition E, progress. Mr. Edrich.
We're going to begin outdoors. The weather was terrific, as you know, this week. This progress. So one thing about the Commons is, some of you will remember that illumination has been a problem in the past. That's not going to be the case. We'll see all the lights. Those will be the main steps to Sunny Blomeyer. See, they got the lights and set into those. These guys are putting together what will become the accessible entrance to the Commons. If you look here at the trees, you can spot Bobcat.
That's what you did.
That's right, the building in Blomeyer. That's coming together pretty quickly. And they brought the grader in. And much of that is in the ground. Trees as well.
Real close.
No audio because I was inside the building. These are the sculptures that are still waiting patiently to be restored to their rightful place. However, one of them actually is in place. Old blue. That's nice. All right, so there's the aforementioned packet. This is the main level in the new building. I can't call it building A anymore. So Nurse Angel is in her space. There's the Maggie Stockton, who has a skylight. Coach Saucelle is right around the corner from the new gym. Peggy Russell and ensconced in the student services lobby. More bins. This is upstairs now in alternative education. A very colorful place with a well-stocked kitchen. And alternative ed coordinator Melissa Foose tells me that she thinks she has the best view in the district, even though it is hard. She's happy with that.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Katie, was the use of the space helpful during the
Absolutely, yes.
the
It provided
debate
us some
tournament?
very important rooms, so that was really good.
Great.
All right, item 5.01, January financials. Mr.
Okay, here we
Holsey.
go. Okay, as Ms. Goldsman stated, this is through January. 86% of our revenue is from local sources, the majority of which is from our local taxpayers. Our operating revenue is right around 72% of the budget, a bit lower than in the prior years at this point in time, largely due to the timing of our local tax receipts. Insurance claim reimbursements that we are expecting are skewing things slightly through January. I will say, just to dovetail a little bit with the library program eval, the library book replacement from the elementary school is the last package we have to submit to insurance before we are able to start receiving our reimbursements for all of those capital outlays and purchase service and supplies outlays. We're anxiously awaiting that, so we have given them the clearance to do that. Our insurance company will not pay in part, they will pay in full, which is fantastic, except that it's been like a year. So we're anxiously awaiting those receipts. On the expenditure side, 76% of our expenditures on the operations side are related directly to our personnel. Purchase service, I should mention that we are tracking as expected through January, which is always a good thing, especially this time of the year. This is where we get to see how our budgets are really aligning. 42.5% of our budget purchase services, which is slightly lower than the prior year, as are supplies. Perhaps we are being a little bit more frugal than we have at this point in the year from other years. Capital outlay is about 25%, tracking similar to the prior year. The biggest capital outlay, other than our construction projects, is we did put a new roof on the gym, on the existing gym. Not a new roof, we did a roof restoration. So that's the lion's share of those large capital outlays there. Overall, we're about $13 million, or 47% of the budget, and about 2% lower through January when compared to the prior years. So timing is everything when it comes to the ins and the outs when it comes to school finance. So things will look a little bit different next month. And here we are, we're budgeting about a 35% fund balance as a percentage of expenditures at the end of the year. We do have a couple of amendments coming up in the next couple months, so things will slide around just a little bit, but this we should land somewhere right around here. Any questions?
Certainly feeling the impact of the ESSER funds tapering off here and the pandemic help. So back to truly being primarily funded by our community is...
Yeah, this will be one of the final years. And one thing that you'll see when we do get around to the amendment, we did receive a little over $200,000 in receipts from the ARP funds that we submitted last June that didn't arrive until July or August. And because we're cash, we have to record those when they happen at the bank. So things were off just slightly, so we'll show more federal revenue than we actually expended this year, just due to timing. So that's another nod to timing being a key critical factor in the reporting of these numbers.
Do we have a list of upcoming grants, projected
That's a good question, and I didn't bring it this month, Josh. I think I brought that last month or the month prior.
Oh, okay. I think I remember seeing it, I just don't remember.
But we have some celebrations in that, so great segue.
That's right. Thanks for teeing that up. I was writing a little note over here to try and see how I can squeeze in this celebration. But during consent, we didn't, set off any fireworks, which would have been really exciting, because we are one of a very small number of school districts around the state of Missouri, one of 6 that put a considerable amount of time, effort, and talent, led by Dr. Bouchard, and we were able to secure a grant for $400,000 that will benefit professional development, infrastructure, all dedicated to really an essential piece for our students in our district strategic plan, centering around competency-based education and really empowering our students to make a difference in the world. So we are excited about that beyond belief. We were just overjoyed. So please recognize that in the consent agenda. check it out on all the social medias as that comes out over the next couple of months. But it's a huge amount of work that Dr. Burchard and the team put in, and it's amazing.
So there's a bit of a
$400,000 is nothing to
sneeze at, yeah.
to sneeze at, yes, as they say.
There was a bit of a celebration in the CFO's office
Right.
when Dr. McGee came in
Right.
with that news.
I've never seen a CFO cry and tell he was like, we got what?
I did feel a little emotional.
Yes.
Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Board Communications 6.01, committee reports. I'm not seeing any because we've kind of changed the way our committees are going, and so I don't think there've been any.
I know I have been reached out to by around setting up the strategic plan committee first meeting, so hopefully that is happening, which since we just voted at the work session on our community representative first batch so that's exciting, and we'll probably be getting more.
Hopefully all of us will be
work going on there.
Going on
Yeah.
soon. Any committees that maybe didn't get their report uploaded that have been missed that we want to talk about? Okay. 6.02, Ms. Katie Corcoran, Student Advisor.
Today I'll be presenting our February report from our Principal Advisor and Leadership Board. So the first thing, let's get it up here.
I'm working on it, Katie.
Catching you guys up on what we've been able to accomplish since we've seen you last. So it does say that we were able to meet with all of our district boards. We haven't met with the middle school again yet since you saw us in January. We're in the process of syncing up our calendars to get a meeting on the books with them, but we were successful in meeting with our own high school board on the regular. We're meeting twice a week right now, Tuesdays during ACLAB, Wednesdays in the morning. That's been pretty consistent. And we were able to get with the ECC and our elementary groups. This past month, we also had a unique opportunity that we fostered to meet with our high school activity leaders. So sports captains, activities captains, organization and club leaders across all high school years were able to get together in the new space in one of our new conference rooms and have a discussion around our monthly focus. And since you've seen this last, we've been able to present at 2 separate student council town halls, one with an in-person format, one with a virtual format. So we've been exploring new ways to connect with our student body and communicate our work. So these are some pictures from our board gathering. So on the left, that's Alex, Maya, Odessa, and I with our ECC crew. And then Nate and Neil are pictured with some of our elementary board members. So for the month of February, we selected the focus of student achievement and celebration. This focus was derived primarily from the high school level climate and culture survey data. One of the lowest areas was students feeling like they get rewarded for good behavior at school. And building off of that, we decided to launch our own high school level survey around goal setting and achievement. We sent that out through our daily announcement emails. We had about 45 responses that kind of helped to tailor our work towards what is the student perspective on goal setting, achievement, success, and celebration. So the questions that we used to guide our own work as a board this month really had to do with how students are setting goals, what resources are required, is MRH providing those resources, supporting those goals, and how can we truly celebrate those. So as a high school group, we kind of use those questions to shape our discussions with our other schools. So from each of our visits, we were able, in our activities meeting, we were able to derive some information on areas of growth and improvement just across the district when it comes to achievement, behavior, celebrations, and recognition. So with our ECC visit, as soon as we started our conversation, Dr. Oyette kind of said from the side, like, goal setting is definitely an area of growth for the ECC, and I think that's something that they have ongoing work around. Again, we see a really strong theme. The ECC kids have very strong resource identification. Like, they know their counselors, they love the counselors and support systems they have at the ECC, and every single student and all the meetings we've had with them have been really, really strong with like identifying and being able to talk and discuss about those things. So there's definitely infrastructure to support their achievement and behavior. I think they're just looking to kind of improve the specific and direct goal setting. Another strong identification point with the ECC kids was they know the difference between long-term and short-term goals. They have a lot more, I think, just knowledge in general than we typically give them credit for. One kid, Amir, had a short-term goal. He wanted to learn how to roller skate in gym class, and he said, the unit is only 2 more days, so I only have 2 more days to figure it out. And so he was like, I know this is a short-term thing that I really need to work on. So they're kind of able to see that difference and distinction, so that's something we can certainly build on. From our elementary visit, we learned that students kind of feel a shifting emphasis across grade levels when it comes to goal setting. Specifically, they use a second step curriculum there that I think is goal setting based, and a lot of students reported like, oh, when I was in 3rd grade, we used it all the time, but now I'm in 4th grade and I don't really see it much. There's kind of a shifting amount of focus when it comes to direct or embedded instruction around those things, but on the whole, Nate was especially adamant that they really do appreciate that second step curriculum. Very few students had anything negative to say about that curriculum and that program, and I think those students really want to see it applied in broader measures. And then from our high school activity leaders, there was kind of just a separate conversation about there's a lot of inconsistency in how our activities are recognized. The work of our activities, our clubs, and our sports teams are recognized in different ways, and maybe the reasoning behind that, how we could change that, some inequity there. And across the board, there seems to be a desire for increased transparency with how our groups recognized, how our groups funded, what can students do to advocate for their groups and their teams to improve things. We are having these conversations, and a lot of students were airing issues with things like their resources and the spaces that they occupy, and now we are able to tell them that's a building level thing that we can take action towards. There's no real structure for them to make themselves aware of what they can do to support their organization. So increased transparency was definitely an area for growth. So one thing that Dr. Jameson has been talking to our president Abraham Blue and I about is kind of working on adding asks into these presentations and outlining specific areas of work that we can do. So for this month, some asks or suggestions that we are bringing forward. One is to look into exploring or enhancing second step professional development, maybe offering both personal and collaborative time with that curriculum to work on decreasing that shift in emphasis across grade levels. Just further development of that curriculum, whether it's embedded curriculum or direct instruction with second step, so that kids can feel a consistency with that goal setting curriculum. Another thing that we examined was looking at the counseling results from the SRSSIE survey results, seeing if across the district counseling needs are being met, if there's any sort of staffing discrepancies, and identifying areas for growth in counseling specifically. One thing a lot of our conversations started to center around near the end of the month was how our counselors are designed and designated to be advisors that exist to support student achievement, to provide them with resources and the support they need both for good behavior, for recognition, and for academic or extracurricular achievement. And so one thing that we thought might help with that is to identify some grant options or additional outside resources, or even just improve the communication on pre-existing like therapy versus counseling that our school can offer. So people like Mr. Kacharik and Ms. Kravitz here at the high school level are designated as counselors that can fill that advisory, academic, extracurricular, organizational achievement support, and then we can shift our more therapist focus towards actual licensed therapist professionals, whether that's just better communication of the resources we already have or increased resources. Ms. Hoffman pointed out in our conversations that sometimes it feels like our counselors are operating in crisis mode for our kids, supporting mental health needs that would otherwise be going unmet. So we want to work on how we can kind of mitigate those impacts so those resources can specifically focus on achievement and recognition. So our next steps at the actual high school level for our board, we're going to be following up with those high school activity leaders. We have some loose ends and some additional communication that we want to do with them, and I think that's going to be a cohort that we really work to continue to remain engaged with, both through this year and in the future. It's a very valuable way to kind of communicate things to the whole student body and connect with our peers. We also want to finalize that middle school engagement so we can talk to them about this achievement and success stuff before moving on to whatever our March focus is. And we also have some community events coming up that we'll both be supporting and engaging in. So for our community, as our last thing, we are helping to support the upcoming candidate forum on March 11th for our Board of Education candidates. And part of the reason why it was designated to that HAL board is so we can continue to really emphasize student voice and authority. As our strategic plan dictates, like the board serves the stakeholders and the students, and we want to ensure that student voice is prioritized, uplifted, and emphasized in those conversations. A lot of students don't realize the effect that they can have on the school board and the work the school board does for them, so this is another way to kind of break down those barriers. And we also have a lot of students from our PAL board who will be filling those strategic plan committees. So we have Neil, Augusta, Alex, Maya, and Avon, who will all be filling different spots on those strategic plan committees moving forward. They were very excited to do so. We had more volunteers than we needed. So I'm really looking forward to kind of filling in those roles and being able to voice their opinions. Any questions?
Yes, Ms. Corcoran, I have a question. You had mentioned before that you had taken some surveys about planning, like specifically high school planning, like how they plan, what they're looking at, and that for me is I'm interested in to see like what the feelings were about, or do they feel like they're being supported? Because that's something that that's really the point, isn't it? Of all of this is to figure out what's next for those kids and or y'all or whoever. So I would like it if you could maybe explore that a little more specifically. Maybe tell us what's going on there. And I know that it's really a building issue. How those counselors are supporting the kids, but that is something I think that would be beneficial to everybody, to sort of make sure that everybody does feel like they have access to a plan, or if they don't, why not, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I definitely think we could look into getting some of that data from our survey regarding, I was more with that goal setting focus to you guys if you wanted to see that, and we're definitely looking into having ongoing conversations both with that activity leader cohort and the student body on a whole on those like counselor areas for growth and areas of strength right now to see how we can best allow them to do their work as advisors while not compromising on any student support in other critical areas like that as well.
With regards to the high school feedback and the concern about differences in recognition, can you clarify what students are desiring as far as recognition is concerned?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about how students define celebration. A lot of kids feel celebration and recognition should take somewhat of a tangible form, so we were having some ongoing conversation about what that should look like. Some people really enjoy, the certain celebrations. We have like an end of year sports banquet, which is something I know have on the schedule that Mr. Davenport has been working on, and sort of things like that. I know a lot of it also kind of transcends into the social media realm, which is when it starts to fall on the sponsors and adults. So the speech and debate team is incredibly well publicized because our coach makes it a point to communicate those successes and student achievements to the people who communicate that out, whereas other students might not have that support system built in for their club, their sport, their activity. Yeah. So working on making sure that communication is accessible for everyone, because a lot of it is they just want a teacher to be able to say, hey, I saw that you did whatever, and that's so cool, because they see other clubs being able to be recognized in that way.
Well, and too, as someone who actually went to their own school board when I was in high school and commented on something very similar, because I was in drama and I was always jealous of the sports kids getting all the recognition. I was that nerd. So I appreciate that, and if it is something too where the school board needs to be informed of some of these events that we can definitely attend, let us know.
Of course, and just working on continuing to increase that communication transparency, and like that's one way we work to do that is the daily announcements. I send those out through the email access that Dr. Jameson and Dr. Irwin gave me, and there's a form that a student can submit any announcement that they want to have made. So that's good both for academic and activity recognition, and also like we have students doing service projects or offering tutoring or community groups that they work with that can now be uplifted. So that's one way that we started to work on kind of breaking down those communication barriers.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Item 6.03, calendar of events. It's not loading. We have the community roundtable next Thursday. Mine is still not loading. I will think about what else is going on in the world.
Summer camp resource fair.
Saturday, come join us.
Yep,
Summer
Saturday.
camp
MRHE.
MRH Elementary, 38 vendors will be there. So now we need families and students.
And then just after that, Mosaic Services is doing
And
a
it's not
trivia.
just for, like, the ECCH kids, it's for.
It's for everyone.
Yeah. So if you give, actually, I don't
community.
think, I don't have a mic.
Yeah, okay, so say that again. Saturday
Saturday,
at the elementary, from when to when?
10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
10 to 1. The summer camp
Resource fair.
resource fair with 38 vendors. Please come.
Yeah.
Got it?
And it's open
Okay,
to
and
everyone.
Mosaic?
And I was going to say, and then afterwards, if you have a pre-K through second grade student, we have a Mosaic trivia. There was feedback from the PTO trivia night that the younger kids wanted to have their own trivia day, and so we're giving it a whirl, and it's going to be a Mosaic Services fundraiser. It's from 1 to, I forget when, but just show up at 1. It's $5 a person or $20 a family, and there'll be 5 rounds of very fun trivia written by our own ECC teachers, and there'll be some dance parties and other fun things, so.
It's open bar, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah, BYO juice.
Right.
Thank you. So nobody's calendar of events is going up. So to our community, I apologize, we can't review it, but it's going to be on the board docs.
On the district website.
Thank you.
Calendar is.
Also.
And we also did highlight the diversity hiring event that is next Saturday. So coming up this Saturday is the resource fair, and then next Saturday is the hiring event.
And then I will just also uplift again that the high school PAL board will be hosting the public forum to introduce all candidates for the MRH school board to the community. That's March 11th at 6:30 at the high school, middle school theater. I think we're good.
One more.
Oh, one more, excuse me.
The roundtable event is coming up next Thursday night. We would love to have you participate. There is a way to register for that. There's a QR and a door hanger and all sorts of exciting ways to get involved. Ed is now going to correct me with all the information.
Go to the homepage of the website. Under the news section, there's a link. Spaces are going fast. We have a capacity of 100, and we're at 80 people right now. So act
That's great.
fast.
That's wonderful.
So that's February 22nd at 6:30 p.m.
Any other events? All right. Action items 7.01, just a reminder, construction orders that do not include change order 44. May I get a motion?
I move to approve the change orders as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. 7.02.
I move to enter executive session in accordance with section 610.021, subsections 3, 9, and 13, and section 610.022 of the revised statutes of Missouri on February 15th, 2024 for the following specific reasons: personnel matters.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Francois?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Ms. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Goldsmith?
Yes.
Adjourned it.
Adjourned at 8:43 p.m.